All right, we get a Big 12 pod number 4, which includes Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. We have talked quite a bit about the Utes, and they earned it because of what they were able to do in Stillwater. Kyle Whittingham also just, 2 or 3 weeks ago had the home win against Baylor. That doesn't count as a conference game, but they're 4-0, 1-0 in the conference, beating Oklahoma State in Stillwater. And now what Utah does, they turn around and they host Arizona, a former Pac-12 rival. And Arizona, don't know who they are, but we're talking about Utah. And no matter who plays at quarterback, they just keep chopping wood.
Well, they're going to beat you up. I mean, physically beat you up. That's what Kyle Whittingham and Utah do. So you're already in for that kind of street fight that they put you through on defense. Offensive line is really good. They run the ball well. They're not a spectacular, that game they played in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State where they were scoring a bunch of points, and then, they ran with USC and beat them twice by Cam Rising having this kind of electric game. They don't have that kind of offense anymore, but they're just efficient. And what they did to Oklahoma State last week was just like slowly drown them. They just like dunked them under the water slowly until it was, they fought and couldn't get back. But I'm very impressed with Utah, and I fully expect them to win the game.
They were my preseason pick to win the Big 12 along with a lot of other people, and I feel great about that selection. Them playing Kansas State, not as much with K-State looking the way they're looking right now. That's a bit more of an uncertainty, still a possibility, but I feel really good about Utah having a spot, and I just wonder if they're, going to have any hiccups along the way. You'd think that it would have happened with a starting quarterback going down and having to throw Isaac Wilson in there, but I thought that Wilson showed a lot of poise. He had a couple picks, but overall, beyond that, had a really good game, and not something that's going to put him in the top of like the best quarterbacks in the country conversation, but good enough for them to handle their business in a place where Big 12 teams who have been around for years and years have been unable to go into Stillwater at any given point and go get a win. And Utah goes and does it in year one and does it with relative ease. I know the score doesn't look that way at the end. It got a little bit too close for comfort, but they controlled that entire game for the most part. I mean, beyond just the little back and forth early and then the ending there, the in-between was all Utes. So Micah Bernard's been fantastic. Yep. He's been really, really good for them. Brant Keithy's obviously a crazy good weapon. So they're awesome, man. And it was like Mike Gundy said before the game, and I think also after the game, is like there's nothing that's like super impressive other than they're just a really good football team. Like everywhere you look, there's a really good, sound football team with good players who know the system because the system's been the same system for 20-plus years. And so here they are, and they did not skip a beat without Cam Rising, and I think that gives you a lot of confidence moving forward that when he does, inevitably they have to pry his cold, dead hands from college football and go, no, really, you have to leave now. I think they feel good about what they've got with Wilson and the other young quarterbacks in that room moving forward. But, yeah, that was a great win. And I wonder if anybody's going to be able to jump up and beat them, because if it wasn't in Stillwater with a backup quarterback starting, like, when's it going to be, right? I mean, and I don't think it's going to be this weekend at home at Rice Eccles against a very familiar opponent in Arizona who is coming off of a bye week, but who we don't really know a whole lot about in terms of who they really are. We know who Utah is. Utah knows who they are. So I expect a 5-0 start, and don't know like how close this game will be, but I think that the end result will be the same that we've seen so far.
I keep going back to when Utah played Baylor last year, and Baylor kind of seemed like they were in not complete control of the game, but they were winning the game, and they had the lead from almost the start. And then Utah, they even changed quarterbacks at the end. I think they may have gone to Johnson. I'm not sure. But they just didn't panic. They don't. A lot of teams do. Yeah, here's two things. I know the game has changed. I've gotten more and more into team stats this year. I'm not sure why, but they're 29th in the country in rushing offense. And then on top of that, they're 22nd in the country in rushing defense. I think if you do that, unless you just absolutely can't walk and chew gum as a quarterback and throw it, that's going to win you at least 7 to 9 games a year. Do those two things, rushing offense, rushing defense, top 30, and you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, look, there's nothing there's nothing fancy about Kyle Whittingham. There's nothing fancy. He doesn't want there to be fancy. It's not one of those like tuned up, like all of that. He's got a system that works. That's going to be the system even after he's gone. I mean, the Whittingham, skeleton is going to be there. The framework, whatever you want to call it, after he retires, which is going to be soon. And they're just the most balanced team in the league right now.
Yeah, they're the most balanced, well-rounded, well-coached, all of those things. And I know it's been kind of a fun little shtick to poke at Utah fans because they weren't, all in on joining the Big 12, and I don't blame them for that. Like, they had finally gotten into the pack a few years ago. It's very regional. They're having success. They've been into a couple of Rose Bowls, can't win them, but have been there. And why would you want to mess that up when you're in a really good spot? But, they've come in and they've walked the walk. They talked the talk throughout the offseason. It rubbed people the wrong way. I know a lot of that was just tongue-in-cheek and fun and whatnot. Some of it actually serious, but regardless of how you felt about all that, they've come in and they've done their jobs, and somebody's got to jump up and do something about it if you don't like the way Utah fans talk about their program and talk about it compared to the rest of the league and talk about their place in college football. They're going out there and winning those games, and you go out to Stillwater, like, again, that's something that not everybody's been able to go and just do in years of opportunities. They did it right out of the gates. So I was super impressed, and I think Isaac Wilson's definitely got some good traits that you're totally fine with life after Cam Rising. And I think a lot of Utah fans at this point are kind of ready for that because it's been this constant back and forth on availability every single week for the last 2 years.
Yeah, here are some great notes from LFG. Utah doesn't panic because of Witt. Here's another one from Roger the Dodger. Best way to beat Whittingham is to wait for retirement. Rising should get NCAA Medicare benefits.
Yeah.
I actually put that one up there. And that's pretty good for me. Conundrum. Witt will leave Utah before Cam Rising does. All that's true. Do you know what the time of possession was against Oklahoma State?
Well,
this is a road game.
That's what they did, though. That's what they did against Baylor, if you'll remember.
42 minutes.
They grab the ball, they hold on to it, time of possession, they totally dominate that, and they score with their opportunities, and then they get stops on defense. And it's just, you've got to get them out of that. You got to hit explosive plays, but it's hard to hit explosive plays. I mean, you've got to make them work for it, but what we've seen is teams just falling into their web and being forced to, make the most out of every single drive because you don't have a lot of drives. And then, you don't, it's just a formula that works really well that no one's been able to get them out of because their defense is so good and because they're pretty solid on the offensive side. And when they need some big plays, they got a Singer or a Bernard.
Yep.
So despite the couple of turnovers by Wilson, that didn't end up mattering too much in the end. So, yeah, super impressed. Definitely got a little too close for comfort at the end because of the way you had dominated that game, but still, a win's a win and you move on.
Fourth in the country behind Oregon State, West Point, Army, and UMass as far as time of possession. That is how they do it. They get the ball. They don't give it up. They don't give up too many big plays. And even if they fall behind, they don't panic and start to do crazy stuff that is out of their identity and also their character.
They don't dig themselves a hole either because if they had to get out of a 17-3 hole, I'm sure they'd probably be able to do it, but it'd be a damn hard thing to do as opposed to it's 7-0, it's 7-3. We're on an 8-minute drive, but if somebody were to be able to the old Baylor teams, that would have been a really intriguing matchup. They could pop a big play and then maybe get you down 14-0. Then what does Isaac Wilson have to do? But nobody's been able to put them in that position. So, you don't have to worry about it. But it would be interesting to see how they'd be able to respond because they have been so dominant and just thorough in the way that they've kind of just made games go the way they want them to go.
And now we go to Colorado, of course, where Baylor was this last Saturday night. They couldn't finish. They couldn't step on the neck, kick a field goal, and there's none of this drama at the end. Maybe there's a late touchdown that makes it closer. But Shedeur found Wester and Colorado with a huge adrenaline rush, now on their way to UCF. But the Bulldogs, the Buffaloes, Dion, and, they lose that game, and who knows what they end up. But they didn't. Now, does that just mean they'll be 6-6 or 7-5 rather than 5-7 or 4-8. I don't know. But they are a lot of fun to watch. They really, really are. They don't seem to give up. Now, somebody might splatter them one day, but they just play hard. You can say whatever you want, and they did. And they found a way, and now they play UCF.
Bad matchup for Colorado. Really bad matchup for Colorado. I know that, we looked at their run defense last week, and they held their own better than they have in most games the last couple weeks, but they're also not playing teams that are as good at running the ball as UCF is. And while Colorado might be more of a contender than we thought, it might, maybe not be as bad off as we thought after the Nebraska game, the bottom line is it's just a bad matchup for their strengths versus UCF strengths, and they'll get over on UCF a couple times. I mean, it's not like UCF is the doomsday defense back there, but I think Gus Malzahn's just going to turn loose, that running game on them, and they're really not going to be much they can do about it.
They average giving up 150 yards per game. UCF averages like 400 yards per game. This will be fun to watch. This is about tempo, Craig?
I think it's just a great styles clash in so many ways that I'm really intrigued by. But particularly with the elements of last week of Colorado, that emotional roller coaster of a game. It's at home. You had the big celebration. Like, are you hung over it all from that? And now you're like, what's the situation in Orlando? Are they going to play this game okay? Or is the hurricane going to have any effects on this game? Because it's hitting right now.
It's right in the middle of your alma mater, isn't it, Paul? Helene or whatever?
Yeah, that's right. It's sitting
coming up the west side of the Florida coast, yeah.
So, I don't know if that's going to have any effect or not, but I do think that UCF and that rushing attack is going to be the thing that tilts this in the favor of the Knights. I'm very interested to see that Colorado defense, which did get better up front, trying to stop for starters, R.J. Harvey, but then when they throw Miles Montgomery at you and they throw Penny Boone at you and they throw K.J. Jefferson at you, that big hoss, is the Colorado defense going to bow up to that and be able to withstand that? Because this is not defending Baylor. This is a far cry from that. So that's really interesting to me. I mean, on the flip side, UCS defense, are they ready for Shador and Wester and Hunter and all those guys? I don't know. So, this is a really interesting game to me. UCF is heavy favorites, have been all week long. I do lean in their direction because I do feel like that running game is what tips it in their favor. Is just that's the strongest of the elements that are in this game. They're at home, and you had the big Colorado emotional win last week. I don't know how the Buffs are gonna grab all that back together and then go out on the road and go win a game. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but I'm just not foreseeing that. But that was a much needed win. That was a signature win for Dion and company. That's the one that's going to be on the highlight reel for the next 3-5 decades, however long Colorado football is still around. It'll be a part of the Miracle at Michigan highlight package and whatever they've named it at this point. So needed that badly. It's great for the league that they got that win because now there will be more eyes on this game than had they otherwise lost, and every game subsequently that they win moving forward.
They probably don't have Big Noon there.
No, probably not. No, yeah, Big Noon's there because UCF's off to an undefeated start and because of what Colorado did. So, yeah, that contributed to Big Noon being there and getting great exposure for the conference. So hopefully it's a really good game. And I mentioned all the running backs. Colorado's defense also has to defend Kobe Hudson. So they can hit you in multiple ways there in Orlando, and I think that they will, and that'll ultimately be too much for Colorado. But that was a really good win for them last week and one that they'll remember for a very long time.
Hell of a game. Absolutely hell of a game. I can admit this now, but on my way back from, Love Field, and trying to kind of keep up with it on my screen in the car, and even stopped to get myself some fast food, which I don't do very much anymore, so I could sit there and watch a critical part of the game. And I said, okay, I think Baylor's in pretty good shape. And then, of course, I got home just in time to see the disastrous ending. Does the rain just completely neuter all of that big play talent for Colorado, or do players slip and fall and allow them to even make more big plays?
Well, we saw that last week.
Yep.
They didn't slip and fall. They made a bunch of big plays in the pouring down rain in Boulder, and it was Baylor players, one in particular, slipping and falling during the Hail Mary that allowed that to happen. And other guys flying in like they had like they were driving with a blindfold on and scorpioning themselves at the feet of that play. And I somehow they had bad cleats or something, and the Colorado team like had the right cleats. I don't know what happened there, but they played just fine in the rain last week, so I don't think that'll affect. I do think that tampers down the big play a little bit, but they're still they're not going to change who they are. They're still going to go for feast or famine on the big plays, and so I think if anything, you just dump it off and let Travis Hunter go 60 with it or something like that.
I did not ask. I was not at the Monday press conference, and I wasn't in the post game because I wasn't in Boulder. But I wonder, the equipment staff, they bring those different type of spikes and whatever else, and you sometimes when it's your home field, you just know a little bit more about what you need to play with. It wasn't raining at the beginning, though, right? It started raining in the second half. Is that right? Because I couldn't really quite tell from just driving and watching the game.
And that might also just be like your little chick, your little ducklings that don't have the right. Like that's almost what it looked like sometimes watching. It's like Caden Jenkins. It's like they look like they don't know how their legs work proper. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I don't even know if it was cleats.
Like mine after that injection, Paul, a couple of days ago when I fell on my. You know what?
But I don't even know if it was cleats or whatever. But yeah. Colorado, I think they got a little taste of the rain last week, but this might be a different brand of rain. That's why I asked about the hurricane at the very start. I don't know what kind of disruptions that's going to cause across the Southeast this weekend for not just that game, but several games.
Arizona last year was one of the really good feel-good stories in college football with Jed Fish. Now he's at Washington. Obviously, Brent Brennan from San Jose State now at Arizona. Arizona's 2-1. They are I haven't really seen enough of them, but they're about to play the team that doesn't change. They have Fafita, McMillan, or whatever, but they have to play on the road against Utah.
I think this for Utah, you'll see Fafita and McMillan make some plays. I think you will because they're plus players. The thing about it is that Utah's just going to Utah, and that's going to be tough.
You can get a T-shirt that says that.
And outside of Fafita and McMillan, Arizona hasn't shown they have anything else. Like they haven't been able to do anything else. So if you do the old Kobe Bryant strategy of, well, as long as Kobe's going to get his, but if we can shut down, and Shaq's probably going to get some points, but if we can shut down all their ancillary players, then we can score enough points to beat the Lakers. That might be the strategy with Arizona on the way out when you play against them. So I just think that they're not quite there yet, but they've got some key pieces that could help them get there, but they're lacking like another playmaker or so on offense.
Okay, let's say McMillan gets loose once, or maybe he catches 8 passes, but won't they say, okay, we're not going to let him beat us type of thing?
Yeah.
And who else is going to step up for Arizona?
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't have that. And plus, Arizona's got problems defensively. They've had that even in their wins. They've had problems defensively. So I just don't know that they can get enough stops on Utah and get them off the field when, like we said, when we were talking about them, they're just going to hold the ball and run the 4 corners on you when they get a comfortable enough lead.
Yeah, I don't like this matchup for Arizona, even though they won this game big last year. The circumstances are totally different in many ways, including, coaching on the Arizona side of the coin. But I think for Arizona, you do love that they had the off week so that they could kind of go back to the drawing board after what wasn't a horrific start. I mean, it's a 2-1 start, but it's just the fact that one was the last time we saw you, and you were getting smoked by Kansas State in a Big 12 tune-up game, who just went and got smoked by BYU. I know the transitive property doesn't necessarily carry over in this case, but last we saw you were getting beat by 4 touchdowns, and now you've had a couple of weeks to go back to the drawing board. But yeah, outside of the Fafita-McMillan connection, I don't think Fafita's played all that well at times. I think McMillan's been a dude, but clearly you can't just rely on him to do it all by himself. So I think Fafita has to play better. I think he'd acknowledge that. And yeah, they need a lot more around them in all phases. So I think Arizona's still a team kind of trying to figure itself out a little bit under Brent Brennan. And there was all that talk during the offseason of well, nobody really left. But it's dude, they still change coaches. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
They change the head coach. That's a big deal. And so I think that's mattering right now. And they're just kind of, like I said, trying to find their way and find out who they are beyond Fafita to McMillan. You've got that. That works. That works really well. And it can work even when things aren't going well anywhere else because McMillan will make it happen. But Fafita's got to be better. McMillan has to find another gear if they're not going to have enough help around him, which I don't know if that's even possible. But I don't love this game coming out of the bye week. I would if it was in Tucson, maybe, that you were at least at home, but you're traveling to Salt Lake City. So this is probably a 2-2 start you're looking at for Arizona, but what a big splash that would be to go knock off one of the unbeatens in the Big 12. I'm just not banking on it.
Arizona last year gave it about the same amount of yards on defense, 350, 360. That's what they're doing now. They're 72nd in the country total defense. They were 50th. Now, probably the difference might be, for example, turnover margin, which I haven't been able to get to that. But, again, I've become a stats geek.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I love math.
As you get older, you pick up weird hobbies.
Yeah, I know. I do. I do. One of the worst parts about getting older is when I see people who get older who don't recognize the hair growth out of their ears.
Oh, yeah. That's unacceptable. It's a simple fix. You get a little trimmer.
Or they're just old and they don't care.
Or they don't care, or they don't get out, so they surely don't care. But I actually have a reminder in my cell phone twice a week, ears, neck.
Well, good for you.
You got to have responsibility.
I grew up in Southwest Florida, and you would quite often go to a restaurant, and you'd see a guy who had given up.
Like a palm tree coming out of his neck.
Yeah, it was that, and it's also like you'd look at what they were wearing, and, look, the guy's basically 80 years old, and he's like, listen, shirt's comfortable, pants comfortable. That's all that I need to match.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
Doesn't matter what color they are.
Right?
Comfortable matches.
All right. We now go to what we've done: Utah, we've done Arizona, we've done Colorado, which now Kenny Dillingham, and the Sun Devils were 3-0. They went to Lubbock. Competitive game. Texas Tech played very well. They took care of the football. Arizona State trying to bounce back, 3-1 after the loss, of course, as I mentioned, to the Red Raiders in Lubbock. And now Arizona State at 3-1 will turn around, and they have an off week before they play Kansas, back-to-back home games against KU and Utah.
Well, that should make this short and sweet. They'll have a great week because they're not doing anything. But Craig's on the Kenny Dillingham bandwagon. I'm on the bandwagon. One of my favorite coaches in the country.
You guys are easy.
He's fun. He's good.
I like him.
If you look at and if he gets, and I'm not knocking Sam Levitt here. He's done a good job with Sam Levitt. But when he gets his guy, like a guy in there, and I'm surprised. Jaden Rashad. I'm not surprised Jaden Rashad didn't stay, but if he'd gotten some more time with Jaden Rashad, that would have been something else because he has got hands in the turnaround of the career of Jordan Travis and Bo Nix. Both of them were a little listless until Kenny Dillingham was a part of their growth. And so you got those two guys who were outstanding college quarterbacks and now in the NFL. I can't wait to see what happens with his quarterbacks over the years. And he's already got them believing and confident in themselves and on a mission because they were stepped on by their own university last year and their goal taken away before the season started.
Yep.
So I'm all about Kenny Dillingham. I wish him the best.
He's got a commitment from Cameron Dyer from Albuquerque as a three-star quarterback. Just a class of 2025, so he'll start the piece. And Michael Tollefson, another three-star from Tustin, California, was starting to put the depth together at the quarterback position. And, of course, there's the transfer portal.
Yeah, Sam Levitt's still a young guy, so we'll see what happens with him. But, he's shown some promising things, and yet he's not like an elite dude, to your point. So we'll see. I saw somebody put together with Matthew Sluka, who's getting more attention in the last 48 hours than he got an entire college career beyond that. Somebody pointed out that, he and Kenny Dillingham were following each other or something. I'm like, okay, but the dude can't throw the ball. I don't know what he thinks he's going to do if that was to be that. That's not your big answer at quarterback, but I know that's just people trying to play detective, and so you never know. But that wouldn't be the big splash to replace Sam Levitt. Would be getting a guy who runs around for the most part, but does it very effectively. Anyways, I think Levitt's going to continue to get better and grow. Didn't have the greatest game the other night. The big thing with them is they just didn't get off to a very good start. Got down 14-0 early, and you're in Lubbock, and it's at night, and you've got a young quarterback, and I think they just dug themselves too big of a hole, and then every time it seemed like they'd get a little bit of momentum and start to chip away and score. Almost, I think, if not every single time, Texas Tech would score in response. And so it's like you could never catch up all the way. And then even when you got relatively close, you got within one score, Texas Tech scores a couple times, and then it's just totally out of reach. So, like, they got it to, they're down 14-0. They were 17-10 at halftime. And then Tech scores right out, so it's 24-10, where it was 17-10. You score, they score again. They score again.
Yep.
It's 30 to, like, you could just never get within reach, and that was their problem. So that first quarter really doomed them, I think, last week. Scadaboo's awesome. Like, he's terrific, but they didn't have a whole lot in the run game besides him. Alton McCaskill, man, he's just not that dude since he left Houston. I don't know if it's injuries or what. I was super excited that maybe he'd kind of return to form, but he's just really a non-factor, which I hate that because he was so good at Houston, but obviously that was a while ago at this point.
Yeah, that seemed like it was like COVID.
Well, it was a couple years. I mean, He was at Colorado since then. Holgerson's been fired for Fritz. Like, all that's happened since McCaskill was a future All-American looking type of player. But yeah, I think Arizona State has dug themselves a hole. That's a lesson learned. Big message, and I think you'll hear this quite a bit, especially for the newer schools who were in a league where, he's a packed guy, but even he will tell you, like, the fan support in that league compared to this league is not the same. And so he was, like, really impressed by the Tech crowd and used that as a way to, like, motivate their fans that, like, hey, we're going to have to create our own home field advantage. But I think you're going to see that. Like, you don't have to worry. Like, Utah's already got that. But I do think at ASU, after what they've been through, they've got to kind of build that back up. So that was a nice learning experience to go into a territory like Lubbock and kind of go like, oh, okay, so that's what it's like on the road here sometimes. I think that will come in handy in the future. But, yeah, bad start doomed them. Valiant effort to try and come back. And now this bye week, I think, will be very productive. And they've matched their win total from the last couple of years. So, yeah, you lost the game, but I think you feel really good about where you are because it's the best you've been in quite a long time.
Kim Coulter, Texas Tech fan. Tech played prevent defense the entire fourth quarter. Jesus.